Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here, and Special Aegislash is a very interesting Pokemon because Aegislash itself is the most mechanical Pokemon that can reward you with such magnificence and such high chance of sweeping, but a lot of people have found ways to shut it down, mostly by spamming Intimidate or spamming Will-O-Wisp, both in single battles and double battles, and it has driven people to try to come up with special sets. Because when you do look at Aegislash, the immediate thought is, well, that thing's a sword, it's automatically going to be a physical Pokemon. But by thinking that, you would be wrong because its offensive state does evenly split its attack and special attack with incredibly high amounts. 438 special attack is pretty ferocious, but Aegislash doesn't have any form of boosting it. It also doesn't have the craziest move pool that if we go back and look at the moves, you really have Shadow Ball and Flash Cannon as your coverage, and if you're not hitting anything super effective, it's going to be a 2-hit KO. That Aegislash doesn't really one-hit KO anything. Garchomp isn't a one-hit KO. Mega Kangaskhan isn't a one-hit KO. Talonflame isn't a one-hit KO. The list goes on. You're pretty much, if it's not super effective, not scoring that one-hit KO, which is very unfortunate. But at the same time, it's kind of the less optimal strat because you're really relying on baiting out your opponent. They use Will-O-Wisp on you, that's a free turn. That means they just kind of, anticipated wrong, and now you got to get the fake out, which, sure, that's pretty nice that you get to psych your opponent out and end up outplaying them and getting free damage, but the cost is losing a lot of your mechanics and losing a lot of your potential, because since you can't one-hit KO a lot, you're generally going to try to endure more than your opponent. Since you're going to be slower, the idea is you endure that hit, then you dish out a strong hit back. You endure the hit, you turn it into a KO, because you're going to be a lot harder to hit KO than your opponent for sure. And if your weakness policy gets hit, it gets proc, that means you're going to start having high one-hit KO potential, which is good, but at the same time you could be running a physical Aegislash, which you use Swords Dance on that turn, you take the hit, and now your Shadow Sneak at +4, one-hit KOs quite a bit. So there is a lot of give and take here that does make it very interesting, but it is just showing where the meta is and how forced people are to do it, and that options like these are changing the meta. That if you look at, well, a lot more people are running Special Tyranitar, Special Salamence, Special Aegislash, that these Pokemon are getting popular, therefore it doesn't feel like, well, I need to run Will-O-Wisp every game to stop Aegislash because Aegislashes are starting to run more special. Now, I will say that, people might even hate on me for this, but it is the less optimal strat. It is probably the worst way that you could run Aegislash compared to what it has in a fair field. That if you have access to Swords Dance, if you have access to that priority with the Shadow Sneak and you're doing a lot of damage with it, you're even still packing a weakness policy, or you have the freedom to use Leftovers or a Citrus Berry, physical Aegislash is much better. It also has a bit more coverage options that you can go with Shadow Sneak, Shadow Claw, Iron Head, or you can even go with the Sacred Sword to cut through those normal types and to also get that defense cut as well, which has worked many times both for me and both for my opponent. You slash into a Snorlax with that Sacred Sword, Snorlax is going to have a bad day. Also, the King's Shield reward, you're not really trying to play it too much. You're just using King's Shield to buy yourself enough time to get that Flash Cannon going, instead of trying to really use that King's Shield to find the perfect time to use the Swords Dance to set up better than your opponent to then go and sweep them with your physical moves. It does create a lot of just interesting dynamics, but it is a viable option nonetheless, even though it doesn't do too much damage initially. So the idea behind setting up an Aegislash is really just, as I mentioned earlier, you need to make sure your opponent is going to be using that option against you, that they're going to try to do something to either physically wall you or burn you or status you on that regard, and then you just turn into a physical threat, they lose a turn, and then you go and eat up like that. Now, there are a couple things you can do with this set. Now, the reason why I have Shadow Sneak, also, if you guys are wondering, is that if you do go up against a Focus Sash Pokemon, or the Pokemon is left incredibly low, you still have good stats that, with a quiet nature, because you will want to drop that speed. Instead of the attack, you have 336 attack. Your Shadow Sneak is going to do a bit of chip damage, and it could, help with a Pokemon that's sashed, or it could just give that little extra damage before you have to take another hit. So that's why I like having it here. Also, weakness policy does raise attack and special attack. So mixed Pokemon like Aegislash can get benefit from it by playing it properly. You can also swap out Flash Cannon for Iron Head, depending on how you can see your opponent. Like, you can just kind of either have Iron Head or Flash Cannon. I think Iron Head makes for a better option because it is that pivot. That if your opponent is going to be, and then you might want to change the EVs around because you're only going to be using Shadow Ball. Oh, let's go and look at this guy. That you might want to kind of balance a bit more because Shadow Ball. Oh wait, this guy didn't have hit points. Okay, because Shadow Ball, it's going to be a 2-hit KO. Pretty much in every case, it's doing about 60%. So you can drop a bit of the special attack and then get ready for some more physical threats, especially if you're going to be getting that weakness policy. So what you try to do is you try to read your opponent. You think, are they going to switch into a physical wall? Is this a Pokemon that commonly uses Will-O-Wisp? If yes, Shadow Ball. If no, go for that Iron Head, especially if it's a Pokemon that you feel will hit you super effective, because then that Iron Head is going to dish out fairly strong. And if Shadow Ball wouldn't be the coverage, like, you anticipate that they're going to be able to take that Shadow Ball, but maybe be a little more susceptible to the Iron Head, that could work as well, because Pokemon like Florges and Sylveon, they're really specially defensive. So if you hit them with an Iron Head, they're going to feel it a lot more than if you hit them with a Flash Cannon. And since you're really dealing with that steel typing coverage, it does get a little interesting. Also with Tyranitar, you're hitting super effective on that steel, but because of Sandstorm's up, it has a huge special defense boost from it. So it is to the point where Aegislash can still be very mechanical as a special attacker, but you just have to try to really think into what your opponent's trying to do. Now that Special Aegislash has become so popular, you might even be able to run Physical Aegislash better, because I've gotten criticized because I assume that Aegislash is going to be physical because it is the superior moveset. That I think that the metagame shouldn't change the Pokemon at its core. That, you do have to run something suboptimal to make use of the meta. That's fine, but don't start treating it like it's the best option. Don't start treating things like, Special Aegislash as the better option compared to a Swords Dancing Aegislash that can go and sweep 6-0. Special Aegislash has 0 chance of going 6-0. Well, not 0, everything has a chance, but it's much lower. Same with Special Tyranitar. Special Tyranitar just works because it can kind of work against the meta that, Talonflame's popular, so you don't need physical investment on those rocks to knock out Pokemon like that. Same with Charizard. It endures those hits really well on top of that. After that, Garchomp's popular, Ice Beam's a KO regardless, and Ferrothorn needs Fire Blast, but it still works. Very strong on that Tyranitar, but Aegislash doesn't have those options. It doesn't have a huge varied move pool. It just kind of has the fake out potential, and then also the weakness policy adding up a bit of damage. But it is an option, so that's why there's a strategy of it. Choose which Aegislash you want to run. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you all have a nice day.